Hi, I'm Doug from Dynamic Computing, and welcome to episode 109 of 10-Minute Amiga Retrocast. Now, I've already released a few videos a couple months back on the upgrades that I've installed on my lovely Amiga 1000 here. Here's a link to one I did on the Vampire V2 that I have installed in my Amiga 1000. The Vampire makes an incredible addition to my machine. I mean, you can see how beautiful it is, but it adds gorgeous retargetable graphics, a processor that is faster, probably 2 to 3 times faster than the fastest 6860 you could buy for an Amiga, fantastic 128 megabytes of RAM, and a quick IDE port that you can use one of the IDE to CF adapters like I use. My goodness, it just brings a whole new world of life to the Amiga 1000. Now, there are purists out there who think adding anything to an Amiga 1000 is sacrilegious and I'm going to burn in hell for putting a Vampire in mine. But my goodness, I love it. It adds so much power, and every single feature the Amiga 1000 has is still there, just runs better. The second thing that I did was put in an RGB to HDMI adapter using the Pi Zero. Now, I used the adapter card provided by Linux Jedi. Here's a link to that video right there. Now, I've never seen an OCS or ECS display sharper than what I get out of my Amiga 1000 using the RGB to HDMI adapter. It's just incredible. Now, of course, the Amiga 1000 was not designed for these kind of internal upgrades. It just wasn't. It just has the slot on the side for upgrades. So it leaves a bit of a mess of cables inside the machine. The RGB to HDMI adds an HDMI cable that needs to be routed out the case, and it adds a cable with a little button on it so you can adjust the settings of the RGB to HDMI device if you want to. The Vampire not only adds HDMI out that has to go someplace, but there's an Ethernet port that you can easily add on for a couple bucks that has to be routed out the case. There's a micro SD card extension if you want to put that outside the case so you can access it. All of these things have to be routed outside the case somehow. And there's no place on the Amiga 1000 for them to route out to. So what I did is I just used some very thin HDMI cables and just put them underneath the back of the case and routed outside of it, so it just bumped up the back of the case a little bit. It worked, but you look at the back of the case, it was ugly as all get out. But did I give up? Nay. Something had to be done to make the Amiga 1000 pretty again with all these cables. So my friend David Z up in Phoenix, and you guys know him as Wide World of Retro in some circles, he's got an awesome 3D printer. He watched my videos and he sent me down a 3D printed Amiga 1000 back panel. Here's a picture of one right here. Absolutely beautiful. This panel was designed by none other than Renee Cousins. You've heard her name because of the Buffy CPU accelerator that she's involved in that project with. So Renee, you did an absolutely fantastic job on designing this backplate, and we really appreciate it. I'll have a link to the files to create the backplate in the description. So this is the old backplate, and as you can see, it's perfectly intact. I can reverse this and put the old one back on there anytime I want to. It's in fantastic shape. But let's take a look at the new backplate. Follow me. Now, I think you'll agree that David did an excellent job matching the colors of the original case. Here's like some original color here and here. I'd say that's within 10% of the original color. You could hardly tell that it's 3D printed from this angle. And the good news is this backplate is not permanently attached in any way, shape, or form. Just like the original, it just slides down into these slots in the bottom of the case and clicks into place. You can even remove these backplates without taking the motherboard out. You just have to gently, pry it just around like the ports here, and then it just pulls right up. Now, if you want to take the motherboard out to be safe, have at it, but I certainly didn't need to, and I didn't have any issues. Pops right out. Now here on this side, we had 2 pre-drilled holes. Now they're labeled kickstart and then DF0, DF1 for like a kickstart switch or something like that. But I instead use mine for my button from my RGB to HDMI. So I've got my cable here running over to my RGB to HDMI. Now I had to drill out the hole just a little tiny bit in order to get it to fit in there properly. But I just took a drill, pops right in there. Now I've got a button. Next, we have a port for the Ethernet jack. I had some issues with this, and let me zoom in and show you what I ran into. So here's the Ethernet jack right here that you can get for the Vampire. You see it's got a little length to it. Now under normal circumstances, this could fit right in here and it would probably mount just fine. But if you recall from my Vampire video, I had to increase the height of Eduarana's beautiful 68,000 CPU relocator by putting 2 spare sockets on here to raise it up so it would clear the floppy connector in here. Now this is specific to NTSC Amiga 1000s. From what I understand, some of the newer PAL models, they relocated the floppy cable. You don't have to worry about that. But what that does, if you can look, when you try to put the Ethernet jack in, it literally hits the Vampire right there. And I suspect you don't want these pins hitting those pins. That would be a bad thing. So I had a thought. I thought, well, I'll just widen this hole here. Then I can go this way, mount the cable or the Ethernet connector like this. Pooh, and it does not hit the Vampire. It still can plug in just fine. I thought, perfect solution, I win. But no. See, I've got this beautiful perfect sound audio digitizer that I like to use, and it blocks the digitizer from plugging in. So that's a no-go right there if I ever want to use my digitizer again. So what I'll have to do is just route the Ethernet out this back expansion port that we're going to look at in a little while. And I'll just use some hot glue or some double-sided tape, mount it right there. It'll be perfectly fine, but it's just a shame it won't fit in the Ethernet port. Now here we have a couple of USB connectors. You can just fit a USB port in there. Nothing inside my Amiga 1000 uses USB, but in theory what you could do is you could use maybe one of those SD extenders, mount it right there so you can pop in and out an SD card right there. It would work just fine. Over here we have a VGA and an HDMI connector. Okay, they're just shaped a little differently. Now the good news is they fit my HDMI jacks just fine that I'm going to show you in a second. But it would also be really easy just to change the settings on the file and print 2 HDMI shaped connectors. But see, the HDMI fits just fine. Let me show you how that works. Inside the case, move my little drive out of the way, I'm using these 1 foot long HDMI cables. They're standard HDMI on each side, so this one plugs right in the Vampire, and then they come with mounts to mount it right on a standard bracket. Really kind of cool. For the Pi Zero and the RGB to HDMI, it uses a mini HDMI connector, but I'm using a mini to standard adapter here, plugs right in, no problem at all, and then using the same cable here. Now, they do make, of course, the mini to standard HDMI 1 foot cables, but Amazon was out of stock and I wanted to get this project done, so I just got an adapter. Works absolutely beautifully. I'll have a link to these in the description. So I have these 2 HDMIs, one of them for the Vampire's retargetable graphics, one of them from the RGB to HDMI that pumps out the standard RGB graphics. Well, how do I switch between the 2 of them without using 2 monitors? I just use one of these switching connectors right here. This handles up to 3 of them. When I want to switch away from retargetable graphics, hit the button, boom. It's displaying RGB. Hit it again, back to retargetable graphics. Really not difficult to use at all, and it's a reasonable solution. And of course here, they call this the expansion right here. It's basically just a big hole that you can fit anything you need through there. So if there's other cables you need, like my Ethernet or whatnot, we now have space to route cables out here without looking like a total mess. Actually kind of nice. Backplane here, where the power supply is, works perfect, still has nice ventilation here. Overall, the quality is really good. So now you can see it with the case top on. You can see it fits just fine, everything's just fine, and it looks absolutely beautiful from the back, just like it's ready to ship from the factory floor. Now, what would I do different? Well, besides just moving the Ethernet port someplace else, like maybe making the expansion port smaller, putting the Ethernet here so it doesn't block my way, I would maybe remove some of these, this text here. Let's zoom in on the text and you'll see what I mean. Some of the text you see is not particularly clear, and that's just a result of the 3D printing. Now maybe that could be cleaned up by making it a little bigger or something, but you know, I'd be happy just with a couple of stickers on there too, saying what everything is, because it'd be clearer than some of this, the printing. But again, no big deal. So all in all, I'm absolutely thrilled with my new case back. It just makes my Amiga 1000 that much more beautiful. I'm working on a few other things though. As many of you know, the parallel port on the Amiga 1000 is not only gender changed, but it also has a couple of pins that are in a different location than the newer Amigas. So even with a gender changer, things like the DigiView or the DCTV just don't work. Now, I already tried one gender changer, and it just didn't quite work right for me. Just something about it just wasn't quite right. So I've got some new parts on order that I think will be easier to make your own gender changer and swap the gender on your Amiga 1000. So I'll let you know when that's done. The second project I'm working on involves the Parciero. Again, I did a video review of the Parciero. There's a link right there for it. Fantastic little device in a nutshell. It's designed for an unexpanded Amiga 1000, adds 8 megabytes of incredibly fast SRAM, real-time clock, and SD storage that you can't auto-boot from, but acts like a hard drive once you boot from floppy. My thought was, why don't I get some use out of this while I'm still borrowing it, even though I'm using my Vampire in it? Plug it in, it sees the 8 megabytes of RAM just fine, no problem at all. But it does not quite work with the real-time clock, and it does not work at all with the SD card. I've been working with David Dunkley a little bit, the creator of this, and he's got some ideas that maybe it will work in the future. But I just think it'd be cool. Just if you've got one of these and then you expand your Amiga 1000 even more, you can still use it for a clock, memory, and extra storage. Be kind of cool. Huge thanks to my wonderful patrons who you see scrolling by on this lovely 16-color image that I edited on my Amiga 1000. You guys are the best for sure. Now, if you'd like to join this list and support the show, pop on over to patreon.com/10mark for more info. Also, don't forget to enter this year's Amiga Art Contest for a chance to win awesome prizes and show off your mad Amiga skills. Details are in the description. Thanks for joining me today. I really, really do appreciate it. I just love my Amiga 1000, and I love it even more when she's all prettified and beautified. Thumbs up to that. Please like and subscribe, and please comment below and tell me how horrible I am for not running an Amiga 2000 with 256K of RAM, Workbench 1.1, and a single floppy the way they were meant to be run. Go ahead. Bring it on. Bring it on. But until next time, this is Doug from 10-Minute Amiga Retrocast, signing out. Heavens, this one was really like about 10 minutes long. Oh, I'm slipping up here.